Galactic Blueberry One asks, what is the most eerie thing that's ever happened to you? My ex and I lived in a remote part of northern Nevada. The house was literally in the middle of a field and our neighbors were far away. He worked nights and I never liked how dark and quiet it was. On a night he was working, I fell asleep and had a dream about him. In the dream, he was standing on the edge of a cliff, like the Grand Canyon, looking out at the view. I tried many times to get his attention, but he wouldn't acknowledge me. He was just staring straight ahead. After ignoring me for a while, he abruptly turned to me and grabbed the outside of my arms firmly. His face looked panicked and he said, "Name, there's somebody in the house." Like the movies, my eyes shot open and I woke up with my blood running cold. I lay in bed silently, listening for any sound. I was even more terrified when the dog woke up almost immediately, started barking, and ran out his dog door into the yard. What did he hear? I never saw or heard anything out of place. I couldn't see anything outside in the dark. The dog came back in and fell asleep. I stayed up the rest of the night, totally creeped out. This happened last year. I was having a recurring dream where I was in the woods at night. I noticed a campfire in the distance. Whoever was sitting at the fire notices me and yells out, "Hey, what are you doing out here?" and starts moving towards me until I wake up. Late last summer, I decided to go out to the woods for a hike. Once I got out there, I needed to pee. I hopped off of the trail to get closer to the creek so I could take care of business and not worry about anyone walking up on me. As I approach the creek, I see a hidden shelter and a man setting up a campfire. When he noticed me, he said, "Hey, what are you doing out here?" Nothing else happened. I apologized and went on my way. It was the only time in my life that I had dreams of an event before it happened. I was pretty shook at the time. When I was 14 years old, some older boys threw rocks from a demolition site at me and my friend. One rock hit me in the face and knocked me down. I started bleeding profusely on the sidewalk, and my friend was freaking out. We did not have cell phones since it was the 90s and weren't near a payphone. An older man in his 50s or 60s stopped in a pickup truck and asked us to get in. My friend was like, "OMG," but I said, "No, let's get in. It's fine." This older man felt really trustworthy, but I didn't know why. My friend got in with me and he drove us straight to the hospital. The hospital took his name, my friend's, and mine when we got to the ER, and the man pieced out. I had problems from the injury for 3 years, but I'm fine now, other than a small dent in my skull. My mom told me I should look him up in the phone book and call to thank him. There was exactly one name that matched his. It was an unusual name. I called it. The woman who picked up told me he had died 6 months earlier, but his physical description matched what both my friend and I recalled. I was able to look up his obituary, and the photo matched his appearance. It was definitely eerie, and to this day, I don't really have any explanation for it. Sleep paralysis. I've had 2 episodes in my life, but the first one will stick with me forever. My bed was in a corner of my room. My closet was in the opposite corner. No door on the closet, and it was stacked with a ton of junk, community storage for the household as I never used it. I wake up lying on my back, with the door in line of sight. I can see that it's full, but I can also see a hand slide out and grip the doorframe, pale and feminine, followed by the slowly emerging frame of a very tall woman clad in a white Victorian-era dress. She was almost pretty, aside from something in her face that wasn't quite right. I couldn't tell you what it was, but I remember being uneasy about it. For a while, probably about 15 minutes, she just stood there, talking to herself. I wasn't able to make out anything she said, but that's when the panic set in. I realized I couldn't move or speak, couldn't look away, and had no idea what was happening, as I felt fully awake. Then she stopped, looked me in the eye and smiled, and the corners of her mouth pulled back to her ears. Terrifying. She started to approach, and slowly opened her mouth so wide, her chin was touching where I'd estimate the bottom of her ribcage sat. It wasn't long before I could smell her rotten breath, and she began to crawl on top of me. The entire time, she was letting out this awful, multi-tone moan that sounded like 5 voices at once, all distorted. I could feel her weight resting on my chest. I couldn't breathe or scream as she inched closer. She put my entire head in her mouth, and I fully woke up when all I could see was darkness. I still get a bit panicky remembering that one. It felt so real. I was driving home per usual, and got this random, unwavering feeling that my house had been broken into. I kind of laughed and said, "Please don't let my house have actually been broken into," out loud as I turned the corner onto my street. The first thing I noticed when I pulled up to the house were the blinds on my bedroom window. They were yanked around and twisted up. Some guy that lives across the street turned out to have been stalking me and decided to climb through my bedroom window. He took nothing valuable, just some weird personal items. It was terrifying to walk in and see my things rummaged through. It was even scarier when I talked to the neighbor, and they admitted that multiple people in the neighborhood had seen it happen, but they were all too scared of old dude to say anything. The weirdest part of it all, and I mean this guy took some creepy personal things, is that nagging feeling I had before I found the remnants of the break-in. I swear I knew before I knew, and that was such an eerie feeling. I'm a medic and firefighter. We once had a call for something normal, like chest pain or something, I can't remember. The caller said he was in his barn garage, which isn't weird really around here. Anyway, we pull up on scene and something just felt off. No idea why, but something just told me in my gut that something was wrong. I decided to do a 360 around the building before we went through the door at the front that was clearly the entrance. I walk around and come to a window on the side of the building and look in. There was a shotgun rigged to the door. The guy had set a booby trap for us, and he had hung himself as well. We kicked in this plexiglass-type material on the side of the building and entered that way. Guy was dead. Nothing we could do about it at that point. I would have been the first through that door. No idea why I didn't just walk through it that day. One of my favorite aunts died at 94, leaving my elderly dad a much-needed sum of money for his care. He had been recently IOU, conned out of his entire savings, while also left in deep debt by a man from a neighboring county, and I was working with the DA from 1,200 miles away to build a case against him, all of which was unknown to my aunt upon her death. I had POA from my dad by then, and was at the bank on a Sat morning to collect the inheritance check. Myself and the manager were the only people there, so she directed me to the only desk in the lobby rather than her office. After sharing with her the circumstances that had brought me there and finalizing paperwork, she left to process a cashier's check in another area. Before putting away my aunt's death certificate, I placed my palm on it, whispering a prayer of gratitude to her for generously providing for my dad. At that moment, out of the corner of my left eye, I saw movement. A coin was rolling across the carpet floor and spun to a stop 4 feet to my direct left. Stunned, I got up and retrieved it, looking around for the source. It came from the direction of the floor-to-ceiling lobby window, brightly lit by sun. No one was around, inside or out. I had goosebumps. When the manager came back, I told her what had just happened, showed her the penny, and asked if she had any possible explanation. She told me no change was kept in that area of the bank. It had been cleaned the night before, and I was the only customer so far. I half-jokingly said, "It's definitely my aunt then," letting me know it's going to be okay. The manager came around the desk and gave me a heartfelt hug. The con man was successfully convicted for fraud, elder abuse, etc., and sent to prison W-max sentence. I was able to ensure my dad was debt-free, comfortable, cared for, and safe until his peaceful death. I carry that penny with me to this day. Thank you for watching. If you found this interesting, please consider hitting like and subscribe for more videos.